We're counting down the 20 classic Crock-Pot dinners that defined America's first slow cooker boom. From thrifty family meals born during 1970s, inflation to party favorites that fueled Tupperware get-togethers, these dishes showcase the era's obsession with convenience, communal recipes, and the rise of processed kitchen staples. Which iconic creation best captured the scent of a home-cooked meal after a long workday? Let's find out, starting with the #1 weekday hero. Chuck roast, potatoes, carrots, onions, and celery. These were the building blocks of the first true Crock-Pot classic. In kitchens across America, the morning routine changed. Raw ingredients layered in the stoneware, a splash of beef broth poured over the top, and the lid set firmly in place. 8 hours later, while families returned from work and school, the aroma of slow-cooked pot roast drifted through hallways and open windows. The meat, once tough and unforgiving, now fell apart at the touch of a fork. Root vegetables infused with rich juices completed the meal. For working mothers, the Crock-Pot's promise was simple. Start dinner before sunrise. Return home to a meal that tasted like it had simmered under watchful eyes all day. This set-it-and-forget-it approach became a weekday lifeline, freeing up precious evening hours and making a hearty, homemade dinner possible, even on the busiest nights. The pot roast with vegetables wasn't just a recipe, it was proof that modern life and home-cooked comfort could finally share the same table. Rising grocery prices and tight budgets shaped the American dinner tables in the 1970s. And as a result, Swiss steak became a lifeline for families watching every dollar. Round steak, one of the cheapest cuts at the butcher counter, was tough and lean, hardly the stuff of comfort food. Home cooks took to pounding it with flour, a rolling pin, or the back of a heavy spoon, determined to break down the fibers and stretch a few dollars further. Once the meat was tenderized, it went into the crock-pot with sliced onions, bell peppers, celery, and a can of tomatoes. As the hours passed, the acidic tomato sauce worked its way into the meat, turning what started as chewy into something fork-tender. The result was a thick, savory gravy that blanketed every bite. Served over mashed potatoes or a pile of egg noodles, Swiss steak proved that thrift and satisfaction could go hand in hand. Community cookbooks and church bulletins from the era brimmed with variations, each promising a hot meal that could weather even the worst bouts of inflation. For many, Swiss steak wasn't just dinner. It was a small victory against the economic pressures of the day. Beef stroganoff brought a taste of sophistication to the American slow cooker. In an era when weeknight dinners were measured by speed and thrift, this dish felt like a special occasion. Chunks of beef, browned in a skillet or added straight to the crock-pot, mingled with canned mushrooms and sliced onions. The slow, gentle heat coaxed out tenderness that rivaled any restaurant, while the sauce, built from broth and finished with a generous spoonful of sour cream, gave the meal its signature richness. Magazine party columns and Tupperware parties buzzed with tips. Add the sour cream just before serving to keep it silky. Sprinkle a little paprika for color. Serve over egg noodles for the full effect. Bridge clubs and neighborhood gatherings turned stroganoff into the aspirational dish of the decade. Gourmet, but accessible. It was a recipe that promised more than convenience. It offered a sense of worldliness, a nod to continental cuisine, and a reminder that even on an ordinary Tuesday, dinner could feel like an occasion. Chili con carne was the undisputed champion of potlucks and football Sundays in the 1970s, its reputation built on both flavor and flexibility. Ground beef browned in a skillet found its way into the crock-pot alongside canned tomatoes, kidney beans, and a packet of McCormick chili seasoning, a shortcut that guaranteed the right balance of spice every time. Hours of slow simmering melded these ingredients into a thick, hearty stew, the kind that filled kitchens with anticipation and drew neighbors from across the block. In Texas, purists left out the beans entirely, serving their chili over cornbread or even rice. In Cincinnati, a different twist took hold. chili ladled over spaghetti and topped with a generous heap of shredded cheddar. Church cookbooks and community recipe cards brimmed with variations, each one a reflection of local tastes and family secrets. Chili became the centerpiece of cook-offs and block parties, with leftovers transforming into chili dogs, Frito pie, or a quick dip for tortilla chips. With its ease, adaptability, and crowd-pleasing power, chili con carne cemented its place as the first true party star of the Crock-Pot era. Chicken and dumplings carried the warmth of family tradition straight into the modern kitchen. Instead of spending hours tending a bubbling pot, cooks could simply place a whole chicken in the crock-pot, pour in water or broth, and let it simmer all day. Near dinner time, pieces of refrigerated biscuit dough, torn or cut into small rounds, were dropped into the rich steaming broth. The result was a pot brimming with tender chicken, pillowy dumplings, and a creamy herb-laced sauce, often made even richer with a can of cream of chicken soup. This shortcut didn't just save time. It made a beloved Southern comfort food accessible to anyone with a slow cooker and a few simple ingredients. Family Circle and Good Housekeeping ran recipe spreads and test kitchen features, reassuring readers that they could recreate the flavors of their childhood with little more than a morning's effort. For many, the aroma of chicken and dumplings at the end of a long day was more than dinner. It was a gentle reminder that heritage and convenience could share the same table, binding generations together with every spoonful. Pork chops with cream of mushroom soup became a defining dish of the slow cooker era, not just for its flavor, but for the way it brought together two corporate powerhouses, Rival and Campbell's. In the early 1970s, Campbell saw an opportunity in the Crock-Pot craze and launched a wave of co-branded magazine ads and supermarket flyers. The recipe was as simple as it was effective, just pork chops layered in the slow cooker with a can of cream of mushroom soup poured over the top. The result, after hours of gentle cooking, was pork so tender it barely held together, bathed in a savory, creamy sauce that felt richer than the sum of its parts. This two-ingredient meal required almost no effort, making it a favorite for working parents who needed dinner to handle itself. Campbell's invested heavily in promoting their soups as not just something to eat, but as a secret weapon for busy cooks. Between 1972 and 1975, sales of cream soups soared, driven by recipe tie-ins and in-store displays that paired crock-pots with stacks of Campbell's cans. The pork chops with cream of mushroom soup dinner was more than a shortcut. It was the taste of corporate collaboration, convenience, and the new American weeknight. Meatloaf found new life in the oval crock-pot, its shape and steady heat changing the way this American classic landed on the table. Instead of a dry, cracked loaf from the oven, the slow cooker delivered slices that stayed moist from edge to center, thanks to the gentle, enclosed steam. Home economists in Rival's test kitchens measured moisture retention, fine-tuning recipes to take full advantage of the appliance's design. The result was a meatloaf that didn't just survive the day-long cook, it thrived in it. Quaker Oats boxes and early Crock-Pot cookbooks encouraged stretching ground beef with oats or crushed crackers, making every pound go a little further during lean times. The finishing touch was a thick glaze of Heinz ketchup, sometimes mixed with brown sugar and mustard, brushed over the top before the final hour. Potatoes and carrots, tucked around the loaf, soaked up the savory drippings, turning one dish into a complete supper. In homes across America, this wasn't just a new way to cook meatloaf. It was proof that appliance engineering could shape family recipes, and that comfort food could adapt without losing its soul. Swedish meatballs became the life of the party in 70s America, their creamy sauce and bite-sized shape making them a fixture at every holiday gathering, office potluck, and baby shower. The recipe's secret weapon was convenience. Frozen meatballs from the grocery freezer, dropped into a crock-pot with beef broth and a generous pour of cream. Sometimes a splash of sour cream went in at the end, giving the sauce a silky finish that clung to every morsel. For hosts, the slow cooker offered a new kind of freedom. No more hovering over the stove, no last-minute reheating. Instead, the meatballs stayed warm and ready for hours, served with toothpicks straight from the pot, inviting guests to help themselves. Magazines like Family Circle and Good Housekeeping featured Swedish meatballs as the elegant answer to modern entertaining, promising European flair with none of the fuss. In kitchens colored avocado green and harvest gold, these creamy cocktail stars captured the spirit of the age, a nod to international flavors, a celebration of convenience, and a dish that let the host join the party instead of being trapped in the kitchen. In church basements across Indiana and Ohio, beef and noodles became more than a meal. They were a point of regional pride. The recipe made its way from Junior League and PTA cookbooks onto dinner tables, carried by word of mouth and handwritten cards tucked into recipe boxes. Stew meat or cubed chuck roast simmered all day in beef bouillon or broth, filling kitchens with a savory promise. The secret was in the timing. Wide egg noodles, added late in the day, released their starch and thickened the sauce until it clung to every bite. This wasn't just soup or stew. It was a rib-sticking, gravy-rich dish meant to feed a crowd. Some cooks tossed in canned mushrooms or a handful of frozen peas, making the meal stretch even further. In the Midwest, beef and noodles stood for comfort, thrift, and the kind of hospitality that turned any gathering into a family affair. Each bowl carried the memory of potlucks, harvest suppers, and the quiet satisfaction of a recipe passed from neighbor to neighbor, one slow-cooked meal at a time. Corned beef and cabbage traveled from the tables of Irish immigrants to the heart of American weeknight cooking, thanks in large part to the slow cooker. What once demanded hours of careful boiling on the stove became a hands-off affair. A brisket, its spice packet emptied over the top, joined by wedges of cabbage, chunks of potato, and thick-cut carrots. The crock-pot's low, steady heat transformed tough brisket into slices so tender they barely held together, while the vegetables absorbed every bit of the aromatic broth. No longer reserved for St. Patrick's Day, this meal found a place in everyday routines, its roots in Irish-American tradition blending seamlessly with the era's appetite for convenience. Families from coast to coast could now enjoy a dish that once spoke of heritage and holiday, any night of the week. Leftovers were never wasted. Corned beef sandwiches or hash stretched the meal even further. In kitchens decorated with recipe cards and avocado green appliances, corned beef and cabbage stood as proof that the slow cooker could turn even the most storied holiday meal into a simple, satisfying staple. A leftover ham bone, a bag of dried beans, and a slow cooker. This was all it took to turn scraps into a meal that could stretch across days. Ham and bean soup was a Depression-era classic reborn for the 1970s, where thrift and comfort met modern convenience. Home cooks marveled at what seemed like a kitchen miracle. Dry beans, once notorious for hours of soaking and boiling, could be tossed straight into the crock-pot with chopped onions, carrots, and celery. The promise was simple: let the slow heat work its magic all day, drawing every bit of smoky flavor from the ham bone and coaxing the beans to tender perfection. For families facing tight grocery budgets, nothing went to waste. Every spoonful delivered warmth, protein, and the satisfaction of a meal made from next to nothing. The science behind it was as humble as the ingredients. Steady, gentle heat allowed beans to absorb liquid slowly, breaking down tough skins and releasing starches that thickened the broth. In kitchens from Pennsylvania to the Midwest, ham and bean soup became a symbol of resourcefulness and the quiet power of set-it-and-forget-it cooking. Each bowl was a lesson in making the most of what you had, served up with the ease of a plug and a dial. Sloppy Joes brought a dose of fun and flexibility to the weeknight dinner table. Ground beef browned in a pan, then simmered in a sweet and tangy sauce, sometimes homemade, but often straight from a can of manwich, became the base for a meal that fit any family's schedule. The slow cooker made it possible to prepare a big batch early in the day and keep it warm for hours, ready for whenever hungry kids, parents, or guests wandered in. This was the answer for families pulled in every direction by after-school activities, little league games, and late work shifts. The aroma of simmering tomato sauce, brown sugar, and spices promised something hearty and familiar, with soft hamburger buns stacked nearby for easy serving. Magazine ads from the era leaned into the playful appeal, showing smiling children and busy moms scooping generous spoonfuls onto plates. Sloppy Joes weren't just a meal, they were a solution, letting everyone eat together or in shifts, with leftovers that could be packed for lunch or frozen for another busy night. In the world of crock-pot cooking, few dishes captured the spirit of convenience and kid-friendly energy quite like this classic. Green bell peppers, glossy and upright, became a centerpiece of 1970s crock-pot cookbooks, filled with a savory mixture of ground beef, uncooked minute rice, tomato sauce, and a sprinkle of Italian seasoning. This dish was more than just a meal. It was a visual statement, especially when served straight from an avocado green or harvest gold slow cooker. The appeal went beyond taste. Stuffed peppers looked impressive enough for company, yet required only a handful of pantry staples and a few minutes of morning prep. As the hours ticked by, the peppers softened, their colors deepening, while the filling cooked to fluffy, flavorful perfection. Department stores like Sears and JCPenney, eager to showcase the crock-pot's versatility, sometimes featured stuffed peppers in their in-store demonstrations, alongside more typical stews and roasts, drawing crowds with their bright presentation and promise of an all-in-one dinner. The recipe's reliance on minute rice, a true convenience product of the era, reflected the ongoing debate between homemade and shortcut cooking. For many new cooks, stuffed peppers offered a way to serve something that looked homemade, felt a little fancy, and embraced the spirit of the slow cooker boom. Maximum impact, minimum effort. Chicken noodle soup in the crock-pot brought homemade comfort within reach for families who once relied on cans stacked in the pantry. A whole chicken, nestled among chopped carrots, celery, and onion, simmered slowly over the course of the day, yielding a broth that was golden and deeply flavorful. The richness came not from shortcuts or flavor packets, but from the bones themselves, breaking down gently as the hours passed. Rivals' test kitchens insisted that egg noodles should wait until the final 20 minutes, just enough time to soften without turning to mush. This single step separated a true homemade soup from the processed versions that had dominated for decades. For many, the experience was transformative, a pot of soup that tasted like it had been watched over all day, but required almost no attention. The aroma, the clarity of the broth, the way the chicken fell apart at the touch of a spoon. These details made it clear that convenience didn't have to mean compromise. In the era of electric kitchens, chicken noodle soup became a quiet victory for cooks who wanted both ease and pride in what they served. Salisbury steak in the crock-pot brought a wave of TV dinner nostalgia straight to the family table, minus the foil tray and microwave chime. Home cooks shaped seasoned ground beef into thick, oval patties, then nestled them into the slow cooker with canned mushrooms and a generous pour of brown gravy. Hours later, the patties emerged tender and juicy, bathed in a savory sauce that clung to every forkful. For many, the taste echoed the Swanson dinners of childhood, a comfort food that felt both familiar and grown-up. But unlike the frozen version, this meal didn't come with a side of disappointment or a crust of freezer burn. The slow cooker's gentle heat kept the meat from drying out, delivering a dish that was rich, moist, and deeply satisfying. In a decade defined by thrift, Salisbury steak offered the flavor of restaurant fare at a fraction of the cost. It was a small luxury, made practical for busy nights and tight budgets, and a reminder that even the humblest ingredients could deliver a taste of something special. Pork and sauerkraut carried more than just flavor to the table. It brought with it a ritual of hope for the year ahead. In Pennsylvania Dutch tradition, the first meal of January 1st was a promise. Pork symbolized progress, always moving forward, while sauerkraut's long shreds stood for prosperity and good fortune. The slow cooker made this old-world superstition easy to keep alive, even as modern life pressed in. Pork roast layered with canned sauerkraut, sliced apples, and a spoonful of brown sugar gently simmered all day, filling kitchens with a sweet, mellow tang that softened the kraut bite. The apples and sugar weren't just for taste, they transformed the dish, making it appealing to palates far beyond its Germanic roots. Across Ohio, Indiana, and the Midwest, families gathered around crock-pots on New Year's Day, believing that a plate of pork and sauerkraut would set the tone for the months ahead. The convenience of the slow cooker meant that this symbol of luck and heritage could fit alongside work schedules and busy routines, preserving a piece of regional folklore in every bite. Chicken and rice casserole became the unofficial starter recipe for a new generation of home cooks. In kitchens from coast to coast, a package of Uncle Ben's converted rice was poured into the bottom of the crock-pot, followed by raw chicken pieces and a can of cream of chicken, celery, or mushroom soup. A splash of water or broth, maybe a pinch of salt and pepper, and the lid went on. No browning, no chopping, no standing over a hot stove. The slow cooker's gentle heat coaxed the rice to soak up every bit of chicken flavor, transforming the grains into a tender, savory base by dinner time. This dish wasn't just about taste, it was about confidence. PTA fundraisers and Junior League cookbooks sold thousands of copies featuring chicken and rice casserole on page 1, promising even the most inexperienced bride or bachelor a reliable, crowd-pleasing meal. For many, it was the first dinner cooked in a brand-new crock-pot, a rite of passage that proved anyone could put a homemade supper on the table with just a handful of ingredients and a little trust in the process. Beef tips and gravy brought a new kind of elegance to the crock-pot table, all thanks to a humble packet of Lipton onion soup mix. Home cooks started with stew meat or cubed round steak, ingredients chosen as much for thrift as for flavor. With just a sprinkle from that silver and blue envelope, a few cups of water, and a handful of sliced mushrooms or onions, the transformation began. The slow cooker's gentle heat coaxed out every bit of flavor, turning the mix into a rich, savory gravy that clung to each tender bite. Lipton's advertising blitz in the mid-1970s made sure no one missed the message. Dinner could be special, even when budgets were tight. Magazine ads promised company-worthy results from a single seasoning packet, and recipe cards tucked into grocery bags or clipped from Sunday circulars spread the word even further. By dinner time, what started as an economical cut of beef emerged as a dish fit for Sunday guests, served over rice, egg noodles, or mashed potatoes with a thick, glossy sauce that felt like a restaurant treat. The power of the packet wasn't just convenience, it was confidence, helping cooks turn everyday ingredients into something worth gathering around the table for. BBQ pulled pork turned the slow cooker into a backyard barbecue, rain or shine, no pit required. All it took was a hefty pork shoulder, a bottle of barbecue sauce, often KC Masterpiece, whose ads filled magazines by the late 70s, and a little patience. The pork went in raw, sometimes with a splash of cola or apple cider vinegar, and spent the day breaking down under gentle heat. By dinner time, it shredded effortlessly with a pair of forks, soaking up every drop of smoky, tangy sauce. The real genius was in the timing. The cook could leave for work and return to a house that smelled like a summer cookout. No tending coals, no flipping meat, just a pile of tender pork ready to heap onto soft buns. This was more than a weeknight dinner. It was the centerpiece of block parties, graduation celebrations, and Sunday family gatherings. Bottled sauce made it possible for anyone to deliver Kansas City flavor with zero fuss, and the Crock-Pot guaranteed enough to feed a crowd. In a decade obsessed with convenience, BBQ pulled pork proved that slow cooking could rival the best roadside joints, all from a countertop appliance. No dish captured the spirit of a 70s party quite like Crock-Pot meatballs with grape jelly and chili sauce. The recipe was almost impossibly simple. Just a bag of frozen meatballs, a jar of Welch's grape jelly, and a bottle of Heinz chili sauce poured into the slow cooker. As the hours passed, the sauce transformed into a glossy, sweet and tangy glaze that clung to every bite. These meatballs didn't just feed a crowd, they created a sense of occasion, appearing at every holiday open house, bridal shower, and office potluck. The aroma was unmistakable, and the taste sparked instant nostalgia. Hosts loved the hands-off approach, set the dial in the morning, and by the time guests arrived, a bubbling pot of party fare was ready to greet them. Recipe cards for these meatballs traveled from neighbor to neighbor, sometimes scribbled on the back of PTA flyers or tucked into Christmas cards. The dish's popularity was genuine, not ironic, and its place in Crock-Pot history is secure. Even today, one bite brings back the laughter, the music, and the joy of gathering together. Proof that sometimes the simplest recipes leave the sweetest memories. From the iconic pot roast that defined weekday comfort to the unforgettable party meatballs with grape jelly, these 20 Crock-Pot dinners tell the story of an era when American kitchens embraced convenience and creativity. Across all entries, a clear pattern emerges. The slow cooker was more than a gadget. It was a tool of liberation, transforming tough cuts and humble ingredients into meals that fit the changing rhythms of family life. Some dishes, like pork chops with cream of mushroom soup, highlighted the deep influence of processed foods and corporate partnerships, while others, such as homemade chicken noodle soup, proved that tradition could thrive in a modern world. The most surprising entries, like the sweet and savory party meatballs, show how bold flavor combinations became crowd-pleasing staples. What makes these recipes truly stand out is their adaptability and their role in bridging generations, family schedules, and regional tastes. The Crock-Pot's first boom didn't just fill dinner tables. It reshaped American home cooking, balancing thrift, taste, and togetherness in every slow-simmered bite.